Meet Brian. He just closed on a 3,200 square foot forever home in a flashy new development outside Atlanta. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, vaulted ceilings, and a massive 2-car garage. The price tag? $475,000. His mortgage payment? A seemingly manageable $2,800 a month. Brian thought that was the cost of his dream. He was dead wrong. That $2,800, it wasn't even half of the real story. The reality hit when the first summer electric bill arrived, $430. Why? Because cooling 3,200 square feet in the Georgia heat requires an industrial-grade AC unit running 24/7. Then came winter, another $370 for gas. Add in property taxes at $517 a month and insurance at $200. But wait, there's more. The HOA fee for a lawn he never sits on, $220. Water and trash for 4 bathrooms, $140. When you do the math, Brian isn't paying $2,800. He is bleeding $4,477 every single month. That's over $53,000 a year just to keep the lights on. Brian takes home $62,000 a year after taxes. This house is devouring 87% of his entire income before he even buys a single bag of groceries. So how did Brian end up in this financial cage? Simple. The lender lied. The bank told Brian he could afford a $500,000 mortgage based on his salary. But here's the secret they won't tell you. Lenders only calculate affordability based on your mortgage payment. They completely ignore the fact that a 3,200 square foot house costs 3 times more to operate than a standard home. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, large homes spend 70% more on utilities than smaller ones. That's not a rounding error, it's a wealth extraction machine. Then there's the McMansion trap. These houses are built by developers who prioritize big over good. You get builder-grade laminate, particle board cabinets, and cheap vinyl siding. It looks impressive from the curb, but it's a liability in disguise. Most buyers don't realize that annual maintenance for these oversized houses averages 4% of the house's value. For Brian, that's $19,000 a year just to fix things that break. He's only budgeting $3,000. When the roof fails or the HVAC dies, and they will, Brian is one repair away from total bankruptcy. He's living in a house that looks like a trophy but functions like a vacuum, sucking every cent out of his future. But the bleeding doesn't stop at the walls. When Brian moved in, he realized his old furniture from his 900 square foot apartment literally disappeared into the massive 3,200 square foot space. His old couch looked pathetic in the cavernous living room. His dining table for 4 looked like a toy in a room meant for 10. To keep the house from looking sad or empty when friends visited, Brian did what most McMansion owners do. He went into debt. He swiped his credit card for $18,000 worth of furniture. At a 19% interest rate, he'll end up paying an extra $5,100 in interest alone over the next 3 years. He bought furniture he didn't need for rooms he doesn't even use, just to maintain the appearance of success. And that's the real trap, the psychological toll. Brian feels proud when he pulls into his driveway. He feels like he made it when guests compliment his vaulted ceilings twice a year. But those feelings are the most expensive things he owns. They are costing him $23,000 a year in extra operating costs compared to a smaller, smarter home. Research shows that once you pass a basic threshold of space, more square footage doesn't make you happier, it just makes you busier and broker. Brian is paying for 3,200 square feet, but he lives in maybe 1,000. The rest is just taxed, insured, heated, and cooled waste. Now here is the part that should keep you up at night, the opportunity cost. If Brian had chosen a 1,600 square foot home instead, still a perfectly good size for most people, his life would look completely different. By avoiding the McMansion trap, he would have saved roughly $23,000 every single year. Think about that. If Brian took that wasted money and simply put it into a basic index fund with an 8% return, in just 10 years, he would have over $332,000. In 20 years, that number jumps to over $1 million. Instead, Brian is trading a literal $1 million retirement for a formal dining room he uses twice a year. He thinks he's building equity, but in the first 10 years of a mortgage, most of your payment is just interest to the bank. He's not building wealth, he's building a debt-fueled monument to his ego. At 34 years old, Brian has only $6,200 in his 401k. At his current rate, he'll never be able to retire. He's one layoff or one medical emergency away from losing everything. 61% of homeowners with large mortgages report having less than 3 months of savings. They aren't successful, they are fragile. So how do you escape? 1. The 30% rule. Your total cost of living, not just the mortgage, must be under 30% of your gross income. 2. Buy half of what the bank says. If the lender qualifies you for $500K, buy for $250K and invest the difference. 3. Ignore the neighbors. They aren't paying your bills, and they definitely aren't funding your retirement. Don't buy a house that owns you. Downsizing isn't a failure, it's the only path to real financial freedom.
I'll see you in the next one.